There is a version of you that existed before certain experiences shaped how you respond to life. That version of you is not lost. It may be covered and it may even be guarded, but it's still there. And healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about removing what was layered on top of who you've always been. Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa L. Yeomans, and welcome to the Straight Outta Trauma series. What you're about to step into isn't just a discussion, it's deliverance. I want you to know this is for you. The one who cried in silence, the one who smiled through pain, the one still asking, will I ever be whole? This is a safe space for healing, for truth, and for permission to breathe again. So exhale, lean in, and let's begin Straight Outta Trauma. Let's pause for a moment and talk this through. There are things about yourself that you may have come to accept as just the way you are. You know, the way you respond, the way you think, the way you show up in certain situations. You may have even said things like, that's just my personality. That's just how I am. Or that's how I've always been. But sometimes what feels like personality is actually something else. Sometimes what you've been calling who you are is actually how your system learned to survive trauma. And when those two things get confused, a person can spend years trying to change themselves instead of understanding what happened to them. So right now, I want to walk through something with you. And that's the difference between personality and trauma responses. See, personality is how you naturally express yourself in the world. It's your preferences, your temperament, and your way of thinking, speaking, and relating. It's part of how you were designed, but trauma can shape behavior in ways that begin to look like personality over time, not because it is who you are, but because it is what your system learned to do repeatedly. And repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity can start to feel like identity. So instead of saying, I respond this way because something happened to me, a person may begin to believe that this is just who I am. But there is a difference between identity and adaptation, and trauma often lives within that space. Now, there's a moment in the Bible where the prophet Elijah, after experiencing intense pressure and fear, withdraws and becomes overwhelmed. That can be found in 1 Kings 19. He isolates himself, he feels exhausted, and he loses perspective. If someone were to look at that moment alone, they might assume that this is simply who the prophet Elijah is. But it wasn't his identity, it was his response to what he had just experienced. And what's more important is how God responds. God does not label Elijah. God restores him. He gives him rest. He gives him nourishment, and he allows his body to recover. Only after that does God give him direction. Now that tells us something important, that even in scripture, there's a distinction between who a person is and how they are responding under pressure. See, trauma affects the nervous system. It shapes how the body interprets safety and threat. And over time, those responses can become automatic. So someone might begin to avoid certain situations, overthink decisions, struggle to trust, stay on guard, or even withdraw from people. And because these patterns repeat, they start to feel like personality traits. But many of these responses are not personality. They are protected patterns. The nervous system learned this is how I stay safe, and it continues to use that pattern even when the original danger is no longer present. Now, let's make this practical. Someone may say, I'm just not a people person. But what if what they're actually experiencing is difficulty trusting others because of past relational harm? Or someone may say, I overthink everything. That's just how I am. But what if their mind learned to scan for danger because of unpredictable experiences? Or you may say, I like to stay to myself. But what if your system learned that connection once came with risk? Those are not personality flaws. Those are adaptations. And adaptations can feel permanent until they are understood. So if you've ever questioned whether something is your personality or a response to trauma, I want to give you 3 things that may help. Number 1, pause before you label yourself. So instead of saying, that's just who I am, try asking yourself, what might my system have learned that's influencing this response right now? This will help you create space between identity and behavior. Number 2, notice patterns, not just moments. Start paying attention to when certain responses show up. Does it happen around pressure? Does it happen around conflict, around rest, around connections? Because patterns often reveal what the nervous system is protecting itself against. According to the American Psychological Association, trauma can influence emotional and behavior patterns over time, not just isolated reactions. And number 3, give yourself permission to relearn. If something was learned, it can also be unlearned through safe experiences, understanding, and patience. Your responses are not fixed. They can shift as your nervous system begins to experience safety again. Now, this is important to note. If something you've been calling personality is actually a trauma response, that does not mean that something is wrong with you. It means your system adapted. It found a way to protect you, and now it may simply need the opportunity to learn something new. You are not the patterns that trauma laid out for you. You are not the reactions that trauma has caused, and you are not limited to the version of yourself that was shaped in survival. So before we end, I want you to consider this. There is a version of you that existed before certain experiences shaped how you respond to life. That version of you is not lost. It may be covered, and it may even be guarded, but it's still there. And healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about removing what was layered on top of who you've always been. Now, before you log off, allow your body to hear this. Nothing is wrong with you. What you're experiencing is connected to what happened to you. Healing begins with understanding. And when you stop fighting your system, healing becomes possible. Now breathe in and let it out. Remember this, even in the silence, God speaks. Even in the pain, He is present. You're not alone on this journey. Heaven is walking with you. Until next time, rest in the truth that you are not what happened to you. Trauma may have marked your journey, but it doesn't get the final word. You are who He's healing you to become. Until we meet again, I'm Lisa L. Yeomans, and thank you for tuning into the Straight Out of Trauma series.